Hello, we are live. This is Aini Living Conversations. I am Julian Katari. I'm talking to Sacred Blue Heron woman who is in Indianola, Oklahoma. I'm in Mexico, in Jalapa, Veracruz. This is the 184th conversation we've had. And this session, we're going to be talking about mother space, the concept of space as emptiness, maybe as the empty space, the void. Maybe it's going to be about the cosmos, what's outside of the Earth. Maybe it's the space in between, and I don't know what you're going to be talking about. So I'm trying to guess here. But I did really like the fact that you're getting part of this information from Jacobo Ginsberg,
Yes.
and I had a lot of fun making the cover for this conversation, where in between the stars appears a face of Jacobo. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I have read a little bit about him. That's why I'm guessing it's got to do with cosmology. It's got to do with metaphysics, something in the field. So let's hear what this mother space is about.
The conturgic field, as he calls it. But so yeah, this is going to be pretty out there.
Out there, totally.
Not as in woo woo, but
not in crazy, but in actual
very scientific and very mind blowing. It's just like,
okay, well, we like that. Yeah.
So everything that exists in space, everything that exists is space in different levels or degrees of organization. Space is the basis and fundament of everything, and at the same time, it's all one. To understand and sense time is to possess wisdom. But since space lies beyond the comprehension of time, so understanding space is the key to wisdom. We are tri-dimensional beings that are capable of perceiving and conceiving space as if it has three dimensions, which is width, depth, and height.
Mm-hmm.
An example to help us understand the conception of space is to imagine a bidimensional being from our perspective as tridimensional. So if we were to imagine a bidimensional, we would perceive only lines and surfaces, but not volumes, not the depth. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or height. So that's the difference between bidimensional and tridimensional. So living on one place, this being would not realize that all that transects him or her belongs to a universe which is more than unified. If this being saw a hand, he or she would see, this is the bidimensional. If this being saw a hand, he or she would only see 5 independent circles and would never be able to imagine the circles uniting in a tri-dimensional universe to form a hand. The transformation of time into a spatial dimension is the secret of dimensional change. The snake is a bidimensional being and is incapable of seeing volume. So we think about that. That's what our ancient reptilian brain is, incapable of seeing volumes. Our vision of another human being is like a tree that contains implicitly but not explicitly the perception of its past. This is the limitation of being tridimensional. If we were tetradimensional or four-dimensional entities, we would be able to see with one glance the tree with its history from a seed to its disintegration as a solid tetra or tridimensional body. So we would see the entire, if we were four-dimensional beings, we could see the tree from the seed. We could see the acorn sprout into the tree, put down acorns, and then decay. All in one go. So the discovery of tridimensionality was made by Leonardo da Vinci when he discovered the laws of perspective. So space then is what is given. It's indestructible and multidimensionally manifested as a limited section associated with time in a mysterious way. Einstein thought space was curved and considered it an entity that changed its fundamental characteristics in accordance with gravitation of temporal influences. Space as curved in the proximity of a gravitational field is space seen from another dimension. It is now space as an organized energy net and is the basis and fundament of time. From a perceptual point of view, like ours, space is transparency. Like a container, it includes material objects in its different proportions that are found in different locations in our perception. So a ball is solid, located in space, and differentiated from space by concreteness. There is something very curious about this. The difference between space and matter, between transparency and opaqueness, between what is solid and what is intangible. So the content of everything that is material is precisely the space which we consider fundamental and essentially different to nature. Space contains matter in every single one of its viewpoints. The proof of this can be found in our capacity to see. We see space, and that space is the one that contains matter. Let's say we look out of a window and outside there is a tree. We can distinguish the tree from the space in which it is contained, and the difference between the two resides in the fact that space is nothing and the tree is something, or that the fact that we only see space as nothing. So what is it that we really see? We are seeing the space that contains the tree. Our retinas are incapable of touching the leaves, branches, and trunk of the tree, and our retina is a very small size that transforms space into nervous signals. So space then is transparent only in our construction of the place that separates us from the object. In other words, we see the area of space that transects our retina. In this area is the information that makes me perceive space as transparent, and the information about the distance that separates you from the tree and about the tree itself as separate. Another example, imagine sitting outside and a mosquito flies near you. The point of space that your retina transects changes due to the flight of the mosquito, and you are able to see it. If you shift spot, you can still see the flight of the mosquito. No matter how many times you move, you still see it. What does that mean? It means that each point in space, the mosquito being a point, is connected to every other, and that a change in one of the portions affects the whole. So a fish in water provides a clear image in this regard also. Water is the fish's space, and that space moves when the fish swims. Any sufficiently sensitive instrument placed near the fish would detect vibrations, undulations, pressure changes, and currents in the water. So space transparent for the fish will be a consolidated quasi-solid net for the instrument. If what we see is space, if each of its points contains information about the objects, then how are the objects contained? The visual information about an object is contained in the magnitude and phase relationships of the electromagnetic waves it reflects. This was discovered by physicists, and yet it only is partially true, since light is not electromagnetic waves only, but it's also photons. Anyway, the information about an illuminated tridimensional object is contained in the magnitude and phase relationships of its waves. Each point of space that surrounds the object contains this information, among other things, so it is possible to see the object from any point in space. That's why no matter how many times you move, you'll still see the mosquito or the tree or the rock, right? Mm-hmm. So what we can perceive is space containing information, or a very complex transformation of that information carried out by your retina and the rest of your visual system. Space is organized information in each one of its points. It is also an energy lattice interconnected within itself, and of which we are only capable of decoding isolated and limited portions. We are able to decode the area transected by our retinas, and then we are still not able to decode all the information in that area due to our receptors' incapacity to respond to wavelength beyond a relatively small range. We do not see radio waves or infrared or ultraviolet rays. So for a tree to become visible, the organization of the information it reflects must be adequate for our neurons to decode. If the complexity of the organization exceeds what our neurons can handle, the image we see would be chaotic, or we wouldn't see anything at all. This is why they say the Native Americans didn't see Christopher Columbus's ship, because they had no, right?
That's so amazing. Mm-hmm.
Applying all this to space and matter, there are some conclusions to be aware of. The first is the transparency of space and solid appearance of objects. We are incapable of simultaneously seeing and decoding all portions of space. We decode only that portion that transects our retinal receptors to transform it into transparent space and solid objects. So the next conclusion is that the difference between transparency and compactness or matter is no more and no less than a degree of organization. Transparent space is too complex in its organization for us to be able to decode it. What we call matter is less complex and easier to reduce to an algorithm. So matter is the organization of space that the brains of human beings and other animals are able to decode and reduce to a neuronal algorithm, while transparency in the absence of matter or solidification is organized space of such complexity that we're unable to decode it. So now we can see that the difference between space and matter is a product of our neurons' activity. In reality, space and matter are part of a continuum that changes in organization and complexity. We see a material object when we have contact with zones of the space-matter continuum that we are able to decode. We see transparent space when we are unable to discover and decode an organization of energy which exceeds our capacity. That's why we can't see angels or spirit beings, because it exceeds our capacity. What is organized space and what can be used to define and measure its organization? Chemical science is extraordinarily profound in its algorithmic capacity. A simple example taken from this discipline will help us understand the concepts of algorithm or decoding and organization. Let's say we have a sample of water and another one of DNA right here in front of us. Both are organized compounds. That is, they are capable of being reduced to algorithmic formula. For water, this formula is a tridimensional representation of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen, duplicated billions of times. So the formulation of H2O then is an algorithm that by combining the chemical elements gives us the reconstruction of the original sample. The organization of water is the way in which the elements that form part of it are related and are in relationship, binding, or interaction. The decoding of the organization of water consists in its algorithmic representation, which is H2O. The complexity of an organization is measured by the number of elements that form part of it, by its interactions, and by the complexity of the algorithm needed to represent it. DNA then is formed by chains of amino acids and has an organization that is much more complex than that of water for the reasons mentioned. So exactly the same situation prevails with space. Our brain transects spatial information and transforms its organization into one or a series of algorithms. Material objects are easier to algorithmize than space, and it's for this reason that they appear as solid, concrete entities, while space is transparent and subtle. Cerebral or brain algorithmic operations begin with the activation of retinal receptors. Your eyes and They start with the activation of the retinal receptors in your eyes, and it ends with the activation of polysensitive neuronal codes that represent the organization of space matter continuum in brain language. We have learned to detect specific spatial organizations, and in this learning dwells perceptual evolution. The objects we normally see are brain materializations of space. So then space seen as an organization of energy can be studied, and the characteristics of its organization are, number one, the organization of space is variable. Number two, space and matter are a continuum, and one extreme of the organization of space is material objects. Number four, it is the brain that creates the transparency of space and the solidity of material objects. So without brains, without human brains, there would be no trees, there would be no rocks, there would be nothing.
Right.
It is the organization, number five, it is the organization of space, or the organization of space is the way in which information is contained in each of its portions. Number six, all space is affected when any one of its portions is changed. And seven, there is no such thing as empty space. So if each portion of space contains information about the rest of it, and we are able to decode and perceive only one portion, what would the result of simultaneous visions of many portions? Space would change in front of us, and we would clearly see the direct influences of one event in others. We are able to detect some of these influences in a restricted way. Remember the flying mosquito. A mosquito flying 100 meters from us affects each portion of space around it. And the fact that we can see it flying is an obvious demonstration that its movements are changing the organization of the portion of space that transects our retinal receptors. So we can see the influence of one portion of space on another and the connection. The mosquito's flight is not just altering the portion of space we can see, it alters all of them. It is as if from one point of space, spheres of energy influence and expand in all directions and all dimensions. A good representation of this is dropping a stone into the middle of a pond and watching the ripples that expand in all directions. So in summary, we can say about space that it contains an energy lattice of hypercomplex character. It's like a hologram. Each of its portions or points contain highly concentrated information. Number three, the basis of its organization are the phase relationship, magnitude, and frequency of the electromagnetic and other energy waves that transect it. And number four, that the degree of simplicity and complexity of the energy organization that forms part of space is variable, and that one extreme of this variability is manifested to us as matter. Number five, materialization is a product of brain activity. Number six, we are similar to transparent space. This is why we see the way we do, and because of this, everything perceivable is our reflection. Our brain organization is less complex than the organization of transparent space, and our brains are an attempt to materialize space. So finally, quantum mechanics agrees that space has different levels of organization. The most fundamental level is the basis of all others. At the basis of all others is conceived as a hypercomplex lattice in a state of complete coherence and symmetry. And each portion of this lattice decreases its coherence, each time a portion of this lattice decreases its coherence, a physical instrument will detect an elementary particle. So, in another upcoming section, we will explore this lattice and its relationship with our brain.
Wow.
But that's where we're going to end tonight, because that's all pretty mind-blowing. That's a lot, too.
You gotta decompress that.
Yeah.
And study it further, and so because this will be in the materials, right? So let me tell people watching that all these investigations are coming together, are being gathered in a curriculum where you can join I will council house investigations, and you can get these books. You can actually get to study all these subjects in depth, get the books. But then this is not for sale. This is not something that you can just buy.
Right.
It's something that if you are interested in, you need to join Aloha I Need Now Living. You need to become a member of this project that seeks to come closer to this knowledge, to this science, which is a science that is not leading the way today in the world. The world today is not being led by intelligence, nor science, nor understanding, nor compassion, nor love, nor anything like that. Just what I call the shadow of the tonalda, sewale. That's what some dudes believe they are, that, and they have confused the Nahual with the Sewal, the Wale with the Sewale, and they're there trying to trick people into being in this system, and they're pretty good at it. But we got to beat them. We have to be able to understand that there is a world outside of that, of this virtual matrix, and the only way we're going to get out of it is by coming together. And this is the most sound initiative I have found out there that seeks to do that seeks to have people come together and build the new, and then let the old crumble into pieces, because it's already doing so, and hopefully it's not going to take you with it. So probably want to think about that. So anything else? What's going to be for next week?
We're going to talk about grandfather sun and grandmother moon.
Okay.
We're going to get to know them.
Kind of on the same line of this Jacobo Grinberg?
No, it's much more simple.
Okay. Already. So you've set the setting with the space, and now we're going to fill that space with grandmother moon and grandfather father son. Okay, that's great. Amazing. So with anything else being said, we close the sacred space. Please let us know that you're alive. Please follow, subscribe, give a like, make a comment, criticize, whatever it is. It's welcome. We welcome you here always with our hearts open. So thank you very much, and see you next week.
Yeah.
Okay.